It started with one sentence. During what was supposed to be a routine promotional interview for her latest film, Dakota Johnson leaned back in her chair, smiled faintly, and said words that would send shockwaves through Hollywood. Jamie and I shared something too real to ever fake. The room fell silent. The host blinked, unsure how to respond. It wasn't the kind of answer anyone expected, not after years of both actors keeping their private bond quietly respectful, neatly separate from their on-screen past. But Dakota's tone wasn't teasing or coy. It was serious, almost nostalgic. Within hours, the clip went viral. News outlets replayed it in endless loops. Dakota Johnson's bold words about Jamie Dornan. Did she just admit something? Twitter threads erupted, fans debated, and headlines painted every possible angle: love confession, secret tension, professional respect. But no matter how people interpreted it, one truth was clear. Her words had reignited a story Hollywood had tried to bury years ago. Jamie Dornan, the man at the center of it all, said nothing. In the days that followed, paparazzi swarmed outside his home in the English countryside. They caught glimpses of him walking his dog, sipping coffee at a quiet cafe, expression unreadable behind his sunglasses. When asked directly about Dakota's remark, he gave his signature polite smile, the kind that said everything and nothing at once, and walked away. The silence only made things louder. Online, fans split into factions. Some defended Dakota, saying she was simply being honest about their unique connection after years of shared vulnerability on set. Others accused her of disrespecting Jamie's marriage, calling her reckless and attention-seeking. Meanwhile, Amelia Warner, Jamie's wife, remained completely silent. Not a word, not a reaction. Her quiet dignity only fueled the speculation further. Tabloids began digging through old interviews, searching for hints, a look, a laugh, a lingering glance, anything that could support the narrative they craved. Clips from 50 Shades resurfaced across social media, accompanied by captions like, "Now it all makes sense," and "You can't fake chemistry like that." For Dakota, the chaos was familiar. She had grown used to her words being taken apart, twisted, magnified until their meaning was unrecognizable. But this time, the storm felt different, more personal. She hadn't meant to spark rumors or reopen old wounds. What she said came from a place of truth, but she underestimated how hungry the world was for drama. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Jamie wrestled with how to respond. For years, he had navigated questions about Dakota with practiced ease. "We're great friends," he would say. "We trust each other completely." But her new words carried a weight that those old phrases couldn't deflect. Something too real to ever fake. What did that mean to the world? What did it mean to Amelia? His team advised him to stay quiet. "It'll fade in a week," they said. But Jamie knew better. This wasn't just gossip. It was about perception, about who he was, who people believed him to be. And deep down, perhaps, it stirred something more complicated. The echo of memories from years ago, when he and Dakota had spent long nights rehearsing emotional scenes, relying on each other through exhaustion and pressure, forging a bond that was indeed too real to fake. Still, he chose silence. At least, for a while. Then came the press conference. Jamie was in London, promoting his new psychological drama. The event was crowded, the energy tense. Cameras flashed as he entered the room, his calm demeanor betraying nothing of the noise surrounding him. Halfway through the session, a journalist finally asked the question everyone had been waiting for. "Jamie, Dakota Johnson recently said that you two shared something too real to ever fake. Would you like to respond?" The room went still. Every microphone leaned forward. Jamie looked up, his expression unreadable. He didn't rush to answer. Instead, he let the silence stretch, long enough for the tension to thicken, for hearts to pound. Then, finally, he smiled, small, deliberate, and undeniably human. "I think she's right," he said softly. "But maybe not in the way people think." Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters scrambled to jot down his words. The air vibrated with anticipation. What did that mean? Was he agreeing? Deflecting? Confessing? Jamie didn't elaborate. He simply nodded once, thanked the crowd, and stood up to leave. Within minutes, his quote was everywhere. Jamie Dornan breaks silence on Dakota Johnson. She's right. Tension erupts as Jamie responds to Dakota's bold words. But what did he really mean? That was the question burning across every screen, every headline, every conversation. The world had waited years for Jamie Dornan to break his silence about Dakota Johnson, and now that he finally had, his words raised even more questions than they answered. Whatever truth he was holding back, it was clear that the story wasn't over yet. The tension between them, once buried under years of polite friendship, had just found its way back into the spotlight. The moment Jamie Dornan said, "I think she's right, but maybe not in the way people think," the room erupted into chaos. Reporters shouted questions, cameras clicked furiously, and every entertainment outlet in the world scrambled to decipher his meaning. But Jamie, true to form, gave no further explanation. He simply smiled, that same calm, guarded smile, and walked off stage. Within hours, his words became the headline dominating global entertainment news. Jamie agrees with Dakota, but what did he mean? Tension or truth? Jamie finally reacts. The speculation grew wilder by the minute. Some fans swore he was confessing hidden affection. Others insisted it was just his way of defending Dakota from unfair backlash. But no one could quite pin it down. Behind the cameras, though, the truth was quieter, and far more sincere. A few days later, Jamie sat down for a television interview to promote his new movie. The host, aware of the growing frenzy, treaded carefully. "Jamie," she began, "you made quite the statement earlier this week. When you said Dakota was right, what did you mean by that?" Jamie leaned back, exhaled softly, and for a moment, it looked as if he might deflect again. But then, he nodded. "I meant exactly what I said," he replied. "She was right. What we shared was real, but not in the way people assume." The host stayed silent, letting him continue. "People forget that acting, especially something as intense as what Dakota and I did together, requires complete honesty. You can't fake that kind of trust. When you spend years being emotionally raw with someone, you see sides of each other no one else ever will. That's what she meant." His voice was calm but firm, carrying the weight of a man setting the record straight without anger or defensiveness. "It wasn't romantic," he added. "It was human. It was connection. We went through something that changed both of us, and I'll always be grateful for her." The room was still. There was something disarming about the way he spoke. No denial, no sensationalism, just truth. "She's one of the bravest people I know," Jamie continued. "She says what others are afraid to say. And yes, sometimes that gets her in trouble, but it's also what makes her real." His words flipped the narrative instantly. What had been painted as tension now felt like respect. Commentators across social media began reinterpreting Dakota's earlier remarks through a new lens, not as a confession, but as an expression of admiration for someone who had once shared her most vulnerable years. Dakota, watching from afar, eventually responded with a single tweet. "Thank you, Jamie. You said it better than I ever could." That one line went viral. Fans flooded the comments with heart emojis and messages like, "This is what real friendship looks like. No tension, just honesty." The internet, for once, had chosen compassion over gossip. But the story had another layer, one that Jamie revealed near the end of his interview. "People love to talk about chemistry," he said. "They say it's what made the films work. But chemistry isn't about attraction. It's about safety. About knowing the other person won't let you fall, even when the scene asks you to break apart." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Dakota gave me that kind of safety. Every single day. And if that's something too real to fake, then yes, she was absolutely right." For the first time, it felt like the entire world understood what they'd been trying to say all along. Later that evening, Jamie was spotted leaving the studio with his usual quiet demeanor. A reporter called out, "So, are things good between you and Dakota now?" Jamie stopped, turned slightly, and smiled. "They've always been good," he said. "People just like drama, but we like truth." It was the perfect answer, simple, measured, and utterly disarming. In the days that followed, articles shifted tone. What began as tension evolved into something softer, deeper, a story not of scandal but of mutual respect. Two people who had shared an extraordinary experience, misunderstood for years, finally giving the world a glimpse of the genuine bond between them. When asked again weeks later if he regretted addressing Dakota's words publicly, Jamie shook his head. "No," he said, "I think the world needed to hear that honesty doesn't always mean controversy. Sometimes it just means care." That final quote became the centerpiece of every headline. Jamie Dornan. "The truth is quieter, it's just care." It summed up everything about their story. Two actors bound by something undefinable, often misinterpreted, but rooted in something far more powerful than gossip. And as the noise around them finally began to fade, one truth lingered like an echo through Hollywood. Sometimes, the loudest eruptions aren't fights or scandals. They're moments of quiet honesty between two people who still understand each other, even when the world refuses to.